Welcome to another Highfield Academy training video. I'm Laura and this video is for Functional Skills English Level 2. This video contains information and guidance on using textual features and devices at Level 2. So today we're going to be looking at the assessment criteria, understand the relationship between textual features and devices, and how they can be used to shape meaning for different audiences and purposes. Now, first we're going to look at textual features and devices before looking at how they shape meaning for different audiences and purposes. So in terms of textual features then, these are the techniques that a writer uses to help the reader make sense of what they're reading. Now, different types of text have different textual features, and textual features can also impact the way that you might read or interpret a text. So essentially, textual features make a text easier to understand by adding little clues as to what the writer wants to put across. So let's look at some examples of textual features. Now, textual features are a little bit different to organisational features in that they are within the body of the text itself and less about what the text looks like as a whole. Now, some common textual features include bold text, italics, icons or emojis, symbols, font in terms of style, colour or size, highlighting, capitalisation, direction of text, and finally, underlining. So now it's over to you. Look at this example of an advert. There are multiple textual features used here, but can you identify them? So you can pause the video now to give you some time to do this, and then we'll look at what we found. Okay, so let's see what we came up with. Now, you can see here that different font styles and colours have been used, as well as capitalisation. There's also some bold text that stands out. And furthermore, you can see italics have been used for this specific information at the bottom. Now, it's important to think about how these textual features reinforce meaning. That is, what is their intended effect and how do they help the reader to understand the text? So let's look at some other ways in which textual features shape meaning. So in your exam, you'll be given a textual feature and then you'll be asked to explain why that feature has been used. So how does it help the reader make sense of the text is what we're asking. So in terms of bold text, underlining, highlighting and capitalisation, these catch the reader's eye, draw attention to the text and emphasise important information. Emojis help to emphasise the writer's emotions, and italics help to emphasise and exaggerate a specific point. Now, each of these can be used as an explanation as to how the writer has helped the reader make sense of the text. So moving on to textual devices then. Textual devices are also known as language techniques, linguistic devices, or language devices. These terms all mean the same thing, so you may have heard them described as this in other contexts. Highfield uses the term textual devices in their exam papers, so this is what you need to look out for. Textual devices are the methods that an author uses to create an interesting, effective, and powerful text. So they can be used in fiction or non-fiction texts and can add something special or original, give more information using fewer words, or persuade or engage the reader. They can communicate the author's ideas in a precise way and help the reader to visualise a scene. So let's look at some more textual devices in detail. Now, there are lots of different textual devices. So one way to remember some of these is to go through the acronym DAFORIST-PI. So as you can see, these stand for direct address, alliteration and anecdotes, facts and statistics, opinions, rhetorical questions, emotive language, similes and metaphors, triplets or rule of three, personal pronouns, imperatives, and exaggeration or hyperbole. So let's look at each of these in a little bit more detail and look at some examples of each one. Now, direct address is also known as second person perspective. So this is when the writer directly addresses the reader using the word you. Now, it's used to make the reader feel involved or included in a text, and it can be highly persuasive. So an example might be, you really need to think about your energy consumption, or have you thought about a new career? So it just involves the reader in the text. So alliteration then, this is when words that are close together begin with the same letter or sound. So alliteration is used to help make the text more memorable for the reader, and it can also make something stand out in the text. So for example, 5 fast facts about the summer festival, and Turkey trains the world in fight against forest fires. So these can make a really punchy, memorable headlines or sentences in a particular text. So anecdotes then are a short story in a larger piece of writing. So it's usually to make the readers laugh or think about a specific topic. They're used to help make the text more relatable to the reader. So an example of an anecdote from this article about stray dogs. I had a golden retriever who ran away several times just for the adventure. Luckily, she was wearing a tag and was chipped, and was always returned to me by caring members of the public. So it's just a way of adding a personal element or humour to a text. So moving on to facts and statistics. These are statements that can be proven to be true. They're used to reinforce a specific point within a text and can help to persuade a reader to see a certain point of view. So they can be really powerful in reinforcing a point. So for instance, human teeth are the only part of the body that can't heal themselves. So it's important that you have a good dentist. And 75% of adults admit to not checking their monthly bank statement. So as you can see, using these facts or statistics here really help to back up a point and make it more persuasive. So a little bit different from facts and statistics, opinions are statements that cannot be proven and are usually from a person's point of view, quite often the writer. Now they're used to allow the reader to empathise with a writer and to persuade them to see their own perspective. So some examples might be, I think you should reconsider my proposal as you probably won't get a better offer. You can't prove that this is true, but it reinforces the writer's opinion and persuades you to see a specific point of view. So moving on to rhetorical questions then, these are a really powerful textual device to use. They can most commonly be described as a question that doesn't require an answer. So they're designed to make the reader think about a certain point and are very persuasive. So for instance, why spend so much on your energy bills? We're not expecting a direct answer here, but it allows the reader to think about why they're spending so much on their energy bills. So emotive language is another powerful device. It's language that evokes a particular feeling or emotion. Now, it's designed to have an impact on the reader and make them feel a specific way about a text. So, for instance, these children are desperate and alone. They have no one to love them and no hope left. So it really tugs at the heartstrings of the reader. So similes and metaphors are quite descriptive, and so may be used in descriptive texts. Now, similes are a way to describe something using like or as, whereas metaphors are a way to describe something by saying an object is something else. Similes and metaphors are used to make a text more engaging and descriptive and help to create an image in the reader's mind, so they can be really powerful and descriptive. So for instance, it's like I'm walking on eggshells, or a metaphor, I'm walking on eggshells here. You're not literally walking on eggshells, but it's a common phrase, a way of describing feeling anxious or nervous about something. Now, idioms are also quite similar to similes and metaphors in that they're a way of describing something in that non-literal way. So for instance, it's raining cats and dogs, or she was feeling under the weather. These are phrases that aren't literal, but are a way of describing something that's happening. So triplets, or rule of 3 as they are commonly known, these are a list of 3 things within a sentence. Now they're used to make something memorable in a text or to make a specific point stick in the reader's mind. So for instance, friends, colleagues and customers, lend me your ears, or your service has been dismal, disappointing and shameful. Now, these can also be repetitive, or we may talk about repetition in a text. So for instance, you might see examples like sell, 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 or I said it again and again. So this is a device that can be used within a text which has a similar effect to a triplet. And again, it's designed to stick in the reader's mind and emphasize a specific point. You may also come across personal pronouns. Now, these include the use of I, me, you, we, they, and them, among others. So they're also known as first, second, and third person perspectives. Now, they're used to involve the reader in a text. So you may have, we can't let this go on, or they haven't given us a fair chance. So when we talk about first person perspective, we're talking about I and me. Whereas if we're talking about second perspective, we're talking about you and we. And then of course, third person perspective would be they and them. So imperatives are words that give an instruction to the reader or show the importance of doing something. They create a sense of urgency and are useful when persuading a reader to do or feel something. So for instance, you must complete the form provided in order for us to process your application. You must write in black ink, click the link below. So these are essentially instructions directly addressing the reader. And finally, exaggeration, which is also known as hyperbole. Now, it's a statement or claim that is not meant to be taken literally. So it's used to emphasize or draw attention to a certain point in a text. So for instance, it was the best idea that anyone has ever had, or I'll be there in 2 seconds. Now obviously you're not meant to take this literally, but it's a way of emphasizing or exaggerating a point. So thinking about audience and purpose then, it's important to know who a text is aimed at, which is the audience, and what the text or writer is aiming to do, which is the purpose. So textual devices and features are used to shape meaning for specific audiences and purposes. And knowing a text's audience and purpose will help you to identify why a specific textual device or feature has been used. Now, all texts are written for a reason, that is, the purpose. So the writer will have an aim or purpose, for example, to explain to the reader or to persuade the reader. Now, often texts have more than one purpose. There are 4 purposes that you need to know for the exam. So there's persuade, instruct, explain, and describe, which again you may have come across in Level 1 Functional Skills English. Now, identifying the purpose and audience of a text will help you to understand it better. This understanding of how texts work will help you also to improve your writing skills. Now, it's important to note that in the exam you should only use these words to talk about purpose. You will not be given marks with any other purpose. Okay, so now it's over to you. Read the following text about hidden plastics. Now you can pause the video to allow you some time to do this before answering the questions on the next slide. So I'm going to show you some questions that are typical of what you might be asked in a functional skills English exam. What is the purpose of the text? And the writer has used textual devices to support the purpose. Provide one example of each of the following devices: rhetorical question and statistics. So now you can pause or rewind the video to read the text again to help you answer these questions before we go through some acceptable responses. Okay, so let's see how you could have answered the questions. Now, thinking about the purpose then, you may have said that the purpose is to persuade the reader to stop using products that contain hidden plastics. You may have also said that the purpose is to explain why hidden plastics are harmful. Either of these answers are acceptable responses. Now, thinking about rhetorical questions, they're quite easy to spot. You can just look out for the question marks in the text. So you may have used the example, do we really care that much about the shape of our tea bags? Or, did you know that most wet wipes are still made from plastic? Again, either of these responses are acceptable. Now, thinking about statistics, Again, these are quite easy to spot because we're just looking for those numerical values in the text. So for instance, 20 to 30% of each bag is polypropylene, or 90% of the material found in these blockages. Again, either of those responses would be acceptable in an exam. So now coming back to our criteria then, you should now have a better understanding of this specific criteria. So we're thinking about understanding the relationship between textual features and devices and how they can be used to shape meaning for different audiences and purposes. So we've looked at how those features and devices can support a reader's understanding. Okay, so let's recap what we've learned overall. We know that textual features include things like italics, bold writing, emojis and underlining, etc. We know that textual devices can be remembered by DeForest Pie. And we know that both textual devices and features can be used to shape meaning for different audiences and purposes. Now, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out all the other functional skills videos that are available on our website for support with your functional skills exams. Thank you for watching.